You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. The earliest thing that makes official. Welcome to 16 years, going on 17, 2,500 plus episodes of the Chris Voss Show. We just keep bringing you the most amazing minds, the amazing stories, journeys of life, and as we always say on the show, stories are the owner's manual to life, the life lessons you can learn. We're going to be talking with an amazing young gentleman today on his new book, but in the meantime, we need to guilt and shame you to refer your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, Facebook.com/Chris Voss, all those crazy places on the internet if I haven't mentioned them yet. Tell them that there's gold in them there hills by listening to the podcast or something. You know, just, you can lie to them a little bit. No, I don't do that. Tell them the truth. So you're just going to be smarter, or smarter. I don't know. One of those two. Anyway, guys, the smarter is when smart people commit murder. That's a bad thing. People don't do that. Anyway, just jokes here. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today's featured author comes to us from bookstolifemarketing.co.uk. With expert publishing to strategic marketing, they help authors reach their audience and maximize their book's success. He is the author of the latest book to come out called Kentucky Barracuda. Parker Hardin French, 1826 to 1878, the notorious scoundrel and delightful rogue of antebellum and Civil War America. Joe Goodbody joins us on the show. We're going to talk to him about his book and some of the things that he got into with the story and where the story comes from and all the good stuff. We're talking about everything. That's what we do here on the show. He is a retired United States Army colonel and corporate leader with bachelor's degrees from University of Nebraska and master's in logistics management from Florida Institute of Technology. Him and his wife have been married for 57 years with 2 sons and 5 grandchildren. Welcome to the show, Joe. How are you, sir?
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for coming. We certainly appreciate having you as well. Give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find you on those interwebs in the sky?
Well, there's excuse me. KentuckyBarracuda.com is one of them, and then ParkerHFrench.com is the other one. So,
Kentucky Barracuda. When I heard the title, I was thinking of that Heart song, Barracuda, that opening guitar line is something else. So give us a 30,000 overview of who the Kentucky Barracuda is.
Well, Kentucky Barracuda, let me get back into the title of the book and the subtitle are basically frame the story of the man, the character of the man, and a lot of his time frame. Notorious scoundrel and delightful rogue, those 2 statements came directly from news editors that wrote about him in those two different ways. So he was sort of a yin and yang guy that had a lot of supporters and a lot of people just thought he was one of the worst guys around, and both got written up in the newspaper like that. He was either a hero or a villain.
Sounds like what women accuse me of in my dating life.
So I found out about him because I was doing genealogical work with my brother and found out that my great-grandfather had been scammed by Parker French.
Oh, wow.
And so my great-grandfather was a member of Parker French's first big scam. He ran a exercise, did an expedition across the continent to California during the 1850 gold rush. And, my great-grandfather and 250 other guys got scammed by Parker French in New York and all the way along the trail. And when they got to Texas, the story just got worse and worse, and eventually broke apart from mismanagement and fraud and deception. And all those 250 guys were left at the far end of the world at that time in El Paso. And so many of them made their way back out to Texas, back to their home, but many continued to go through Mexico on ships up to San Francisco, including my great-grandfather and his brother. So they made it to the gold fields, but not without a lot of battles along the way.
So 200-ish years later, we're getting revenge on him for the family. You're outing him, as it were.
And interestingly enough, my wife and I have met some great-grandchildren of Parker French. Had lunch with them and compared notes, and interesting. They all thought they knew that he was a scoundrel, but they found out that he wasn't. He was more of a scoundrel than they thought he was. So.
There you go. And the description on this on Amazon is insane for this. I mean, he was reportedly killed 5 times.
Yes,
all over Mexico and Nicaragua, and sounds like Billy the Kid or something. Maybe, I don't know. So was this stuff that was going on after the Civil War, where it was kind of like crazy time of people trying to figure out the world?
It transitioned from 1850 through his main time frame. He was in the news all the time. Was from 1850 and then into the Civil War, where he was arrested as a Confederate sympathizer and spy up in Connecticut. So
an opportunist being a spy. Who knew?
Yeah, and he had all kinds of different ways of thinking, but I think he was just basically a chameleon, a political chameleon that did anything that came to mind. And if he found out that you were doing something that he could support, that forwarded his agenda and his bank account, he was going to get involved in it. And then he had no problem in betraying allies or getting out and turning tail. So
he should have run for president, or maybe start a religion or something. I don't know. There was a lot of that going on during those times. Mormons, excuse me. I mean, it sounds like he was doing all sorts of stuff, and maybe he would have been a great politician. How to work both sides of the aisle.
I think he was a brilliant guy and got started the wrong way, and he had all the family ties and business ties that would have made him a very successful person. But everything he did, some of the stuff he did, I think, started out as a legitimate enterprise. But he found out it was much too tough to do it that way. He just scammed people and walked away from debtors and partners and people that had paid him money. And then at the time, of course, it was almost impossible to trace those kinds of guys down because
no fingerprints, no.
The nascency of the all the communications that were going on at the time. I mean, there was very hard to trace him down.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big country, and I mean, I don't think we really still figured out local laws and police or whatever. Maybe we did in funded cities, but there was so much growth and stuff going on out west and the thing. You wrote about how he fought in the British Navy in the first Opium War. I don't even think I heard of the first Opium War, but I did flunk history, so that's probably why.
So it was a British-Chinese war that he ran away from home. He lived with his uncle at the time. Very promising event. He lived with his uncle, who was a statesman and politician in Kentucky. Ran away from home, made his way to New Orleans, and eventually got to England, where he set sail on a battleship of some kind that headed toward the Far East. And then when he came back, he was well respected in all the local papers and everything, and was doing well as a youth in business. And then he eventually got to St. Louis through Alton, Illinois, where he met his wife, and joined the family, Edwards family of Illinois, who were very influential at the time. They were connected by marriage to both the Lincoln family and the Calhoun family. When he got to St. Louis, he built the first ocean-going ship on the Upper Mississippi. So, it turned out to be a pretty good ship. And then walked away from that just after it was floated and before all of the final stuff had to be added onto it. He walked away from it with his wife. They scampered away and left about $90,000 in debts behind.
Oh, wow.
Which was the equivalent now of, up into $3 or $4 million.
Yeah. Was he like living high on the hog, spending the money on his own things or something? Maybe he was collecting those things the Gen Zers collect. I forget what they call them, the little dolls or something. Maybe he was putting his money in Bitcoin or something.
he was up and down, and at some points in time, he could be found in the newspapers as being very influential and affluent. And other times, he looked like a tramp.
Sounds like me.
Now that was either the up and downs of his economic fortunes, or it could have been a trap laid by him.
That, or maybe his wife just went to Target all the time. I know guys who have wives that go to Target twice a day, and you're like, twice a day? Is that necessary? Do you need that much trash at Target? But
that's right. So I was. My brother and I were sort of shocked when we found out that our great-grandfather had been scammed by him, because we had family lore that he was a very tough, cynical, didn't take fools lightly things. We found out he was in great company. He scammed the president of Nicaragua, a bunch of people on the way to California, Major Longstreet at the time, the future general of Civil War fame. Senator Johnson, who was going to be, eventually became the president, and then a whole bunch of other industrialists and politicians who he took advantage of his ability to be a political ideologue, so he could say anything to anybody, and that he could make them believe.
See, like I said, he'd be a great politician. Yeah, but it sounds like he did some of this. I mean, I'm reading the things here. He was a lawyer, district attorney, legislator, journalist, political enforcer in California, member of an American cabal which governed Nicaragua.
Yep.
And then later he was he all did this before his 30s, I guess. He was a real estate developer, a lawyer, a journalist, part of a conspiracy to invade Mexico. I was part of that. Suspected seditionist and Confederate agent. And then later a lawyer and purveyor for Union troops.
Yes.
He plays all sides, man. He is a politician right there. He's working both sides of the aisle.
He did. He got arrested up in Connecticut and put in a prison up in Boston Harbor, with a bunch of other political prisoners at the time. And then they couldn't develop enough proof to actually take him to court and prove anything. Yeah. Although they had the agents that arrested him thought they had plenty of proof.
Yeah.
So he was released, went back down to this next step was from Boston to Washington, D.C., where he lived openly as Parker French. And then we started doing the lawyering, legal stuff for Union troops, and eventually got into being a supply guy for different brigades and regiments.
Wow.
So
it sounds like it'd make a great movie.
I hope so.
Anyone want a great movie script? Here you go.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's done a lot of stuff, and I could see a good movie like what was that? The OK Corral. What was that OK Corral movie with all those great actors in it? But yeah, I mean, oh wow, he did a lot of crazy stuff. Was there anybody that I imagine you did some research around those areas and times. Was there anybody that came close to being as, what's the right word, auspicious as this guy?
Not in his time frame. Later on was the Brooklyn Bridge, scams and those kinds of things later. But many people at the time were copycatting him and trying to pull off scams along the same level, but they were never successful. I could find out that they'd actually matched what Parker French did.
I know in the 1800s they were doing gold digging scams because of the Egyptian King Tut and things being found in Egypt. And so they were looking for stuff here and gold from battles and stuff. That's how Joseph Smith, the Mormon Church, got started. But they would do a gold digging scam. They would go to farmers and they would say, they would have like a water witcher, the stick, and they would be like, hey, we got a special stick for gold, and it says there's gold on your land, but you got to pay us up front to dig it up.
Right.
And they would pay them up front. And they dig and dig and dig, and no one found gold, and they would split skis.
Disappear in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And then once he was arrested and prosecuted as a felon, he came up with a new way to make money. But that's a different story. But there's a lot of this stuff, weird stuff going on at that time. I mean, evidently this gold digging scam was so huge they actually passed laws against it. I mean, right. you know, there's a lot of laws being broken when they go, okay, we got so many criminals doing this shit, we got to pass some laws. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's just kind of wild because you're like, I mean, I guess there was no internet out back then, so you couldn't like check on stuff. You know, like you can now. If you get a letter from a Nigerian prince, an email, you can be like, "Hey, is this legit?" You can ask Google and find out. Of course, most people don't. I guess they get wrapped into them. So, you're finally getting your money back for your long lost relative who was scammed, and by selling the book, then.
Well, there's a funny story to that regard. So
sure.
Carol and I were having lunch with two great grandsons from Parker French out in Tennessee. And they're very, very nice, very friendly,
sure.
funnier than hell. And we had a great time with them. And my brother had previously said, hey, they still owe us $250 for inflation adjusted. So $8,000 or so. So after I got to know him a little bit and knew he had a good sense of humor, I said, we demand our $8,000 inflation adjusted, thing back.
Wow.
He looked straight at me across the table and said, will you accept a French family check?
A French family check? Is that what? Yeah. Wow. French family check. I know where that's gonna. Right. I know how much rubber is going to be in that baby, evidently, according to your book. Implicated in an irregular invasion of Cuba. Was that around the Cuban War time, or was that?
This was at the same time he was doing an expedition to California.
Okay.
One of the rumors was that he really didn't intend to take everybody to California. He intended to stop off in Cuba and join one of the revolutions against the Spanish of the time.
That's what I do on the way from New York to California. I just stop off on the way to Cuba.
The ships had a point in Havana that they would transfer ships and transfer passengers from one ship to another.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, I mean, the mob tried it years later. So, and then who was the guy who took over Cuba in the 60s? I can't believe I've forgotten his name. Anyway. So he was kind of a scoundrel, and then in the end, after all the assumptions of him being killed 5 times, twice in gunfights, executed in Mexico by both hanging and firing squad, because that's what I like to do, and then once killed in Nicaragua, he died of natural causes for all the scoundreling.
He died when in bed with his new wife by his side and with one of the prominent physicians in New York treating him. He had, I think, it was a combination malaria and rheumatoid arthritis, and probably a good batch of alcoholism in there that screwed with his innards. So
that'll do. That alcoholism. But that's funny. He died of natural causes. Was his famous last words is "Good luck getting paid back now."
Well, and then his funeral was just a case of. It was amazing when I was reading in the newspaper articles about his funeral. It was in Alton, Illinois, where he had lived for a time, where he met his first wife. he got buried there in an elaborate funeral, and with the pallbearers were city fathers and regionally known politicians. So they either didn't ever hear the whole stories, or they just didn't believe him. They were on the side that he was a saint and a patriot. My wife thought that he had a huge number of people that came to the funeral to make sure he was dead this time. But,
he was dead this time. That sounds like all my exes, what they always tell me.
Yeah.
Make sure he's dead this time. Yeah, I've heard that story. So what's on the future docket for you? Now, this is your first book. Is any more books made about this gentleman?
I have a couple I'm considering. It's just the amount of research I would have to do to do them. And the amount of traveling and stuff that I have to do them. And there might be a story there, but I just have to make sure there's a there before I
make sure there's a there.
Yeah. So I have plenty of the research done, but it's all of it needs good positive. Make sure that it's there. It's there. Mm-hmm. On the research I did for this book, there's we have 340 some odd references in it.
Oh wow!
So it's
plus he was in the papers a lot. It sounds like
he was very prominent in the newspapers. In fact, was dominating headlines in some cases.
Wow, guy was popular.
What's that?
Guy was popular. Sometimes we like those. It's kind of like maybe it's like the mob back in the day. The mafia has always kind of had this romance. Americans kind of have this romance with the mob. So maybe we kind of like a little scoundreldom. It's kind of like watching the Kardashians. You're like, you're stupid, but you can't look away, sort of thing. It's like a car crash. Slow moving car crash. But so we kind of like, I think we kind of like we like rock stars for that reason, because they can operate outside of the norms of society. We know they're going to get girls, they're going to get money, and they're going to do lots of drugs, and we celebrate that for some reason. But they do make good music on those drugs. So
many of the news stories on him at the time were almost like a tabloid-esque type of thing at the checkout counter of the
back then they had what's it called? He was like the National Enquirer of guy.
Yeah, there were a couple of newspapers that were like weekly
the Globe and stuff.
Write up things. And he
would be on the cover, and then down in the section below they'd be like, Elvis is still alive. Sort of magazines. Yeah, I got it. He probably still was in the 1800s too.
And historians, one of the things I did out of the book, I said, okay, so how come our great grandfather got scammed by this guy? Mm-hmm. And I said before that he was in great company. One of those people that Parker French scammed was Cornelius Vanderbilt, the richest guy and the most powerful guy, one of the most powerful guys in the country at the time. Yeah,
I'll get in trouble.
So how did he do this, and what happened? Well, and why haven't historians before, done any writing on this? Well, there were two articles in like the 1878 newspaper that laid out his life, and most of it was wrong.
Wow.
Yeah, and so they either compiled different stories about him that were not true. Or listen to him tell his stories about himself that possibly could be or could not be true. Mm-hmm. And then so he sort of got lost to history after that time period, because historians rightfully saw these two things, and he thought of him as an inconsequential character, wasn't really that important, didn't do many things. But he was much more influential. I found him much more influential to period history than had been further done before.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would make a great movie,
Well, hoping like for a series of some kind that, because there's basically 19 different chapters, and there's basically 19 different stories, and the time period. So
There's a lot of, we like Scoundrels. I mean, Billy the Kid, that was a good movie. And stuff like that. And, some of the Clint Eastwood movies, he wasn't always the good guy. But we kind of like these stories. And it sounds like he got so many adventures. You could probably make that an Amazon series for all the adventures he went on.
Some of my readers brought up the point that they thought of him as a 1850s version of Catch Me If You Can.
Oh, yeah. Scam artist, yeah.
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 And at that time, he was the best of them.
Yeah. Sounds like he had his thing. And he got away with it, basically. He died of old age. Good for him. I guess. So, anything more coming out? You're just still projects being worked, maybe.
Yes, initial sort of be a sort of sequel or something that came out of the Parker French story that intrigued me that had never been written about. So I'm trying to sort out if there's enough there to do a nonfiction historical
fiction sort of thing. Yeah.
No, it's actually this Parker French. All of it is obviously biographical sketch and nonfiction.
Oh,
and I think I'd do the same thing with any story that came out.
Yeah. There's probably a few things that were going on with a few different people back then, because it was kind of like, it was the Wild West, right? It was wide open, and there was a lot of lawmen running around, and you just never know what's going to take and happen and stuff, and now you finally got revenge for your family member there.
Yes. Yeah.
Remember, folks, be good, or somebody 200 years from now will write about you and what a scoundrel you were. I think most of my exes are working on books for that as well. So I've been told that I'm quite the scoundrel, and no woman should ever put up with me or something. I don't know, something like that. No, but that's a matter of opinion, I suppose.
Oh yeah, it's always a matter.
Well, this is pretty interesting. So tell us about your life. It sounds like you served in the military.
I did.
And when did you kind of know you kind of had a knack for writing? Have you always written? When did you kind of know that you kind of had it?
I didn't know it, but in this type of thing, I grew up in the military writing reports and different things that hit the filing cabinet. But I never did anything in this regard. And one of the helpful things, and I was trying to figure out how to write it, how to do this thing. And there's a book by two Australian ladies, and I guess a paraphrase, their title is how to write history that people will actually read. And they presented that it ought to be written as a fiction with character development and a tone of that kind of stuff and theme and a good storyline that you held together. And so I did that. And then some people wanted me to put more speaking parts in it, so I get a dialogue going in between people. And I didn't do that. There is some dialogue in the book, but it's directly out of newspaper reports on what Parker French actually it said to different people. Because during arrest warrants, you had arrest warrants on him, and he would actually use his gift of gab and quick mind, and he had a lawyer's training to just figure out how to get out of almost anything. Mm-hmm. He'd so confuse an issue that there would be very little left to charge him with. One of the things that hit, there was a period of time in the late 1850s, early 1860, where he was lapsed from the newspaper stories for a time, and a lot of people at that time thought he was dead because they just hadn't heard anything interesting of him at the time. Mm-hmm. Well, he showed up in New Orleans in 1860. And there was a big convention going on of rabble rousers of the time, and he was suspected of being there. Well, one of the things he did was he took a box of 300-pound box of stuff into a commissioned merchant there, and got a loan on the proceeds of it. Well, the box, he said, was full of opium, which was legal at the time. And he went back and tried to get another loan on it, and it got the interest of the people that were in charge, and they opened up the box, and it was said to be, not much more than sawdust and sand. So he got charged with fraud and everything else in that little caper. So he's always doing these little side capers too that didn't hit, weren't of any long-term importance, just take advantage of people. About the same time, there was a Texan who was in New Orleans, and he was sort of the matchmaker between this Texan and a woman from Georgia, a widow from Georgia. And the newspapers at the time just wrote that up like something, because both Parker French and this military guy from Texas were well known, and he was said by the newspaper to be tall, dark, and handsome. And the widow had an additional fair thing of having $15,000. So that was quite a bit of money at the time. So I tried to find marriage records for those two, but never did find them out.
Oh, wow. Well, it's an interesting life. It's a journey. I kind of feel like I'm underperforming at life now, because this guy's done like everything. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, lawyer, district attorney, legislator, journalist, and political enforcer, member of an American cabal. Jeez, I need to do that. I'm going to rearrange my bucket list, I think. Is what
there you go. When he showed up in California after his wagon train broke apart in El Paso. And of course, newspaper stories were all over the place about him committing fraud and scams and schemes and everything. And he showed up in San Luis Obispo, California, and presented himself as a lawyer, although he didn't have any kind of full
so he wasn't really a lawyer?
No. Well, I don't think so. I think he read law with his father, but it wasn't. So he showed up in San Luis Obispo and became a private attorney, and then got elected or appointed to the district attorney. He was a district attorney of San Luis Obispo County, and then got elected to the California legislature.
Wow.
And he shows up in the California legislature, and guess what committee he's on? He shows up on the Ways and Means Committee. And a little while later, after he finished his political appointments and everything, he garnered with a big contract for printing all of the public records of the California legislature and the whole government. So he had a way of continuing on different scams and schemes that were going on.
Well, as we go out, give people your final pitch out to order up your book and your .coms and all that good stuff.
Okay. So it reads like fiction, but it is not. I took the advice of the two ladies from Australia and tried to write it in a fictional manner. Everything in it is true out of the 340 some odd references. It's a good story of the time, I believe, and it gives a very good view of he's the main character, but what was happening around the history of the nation right around that time too. It's a good linkage there.
Yeah.
So it can be found on Amazon, Kentucky Barracuda. It can be found in multiple articles and newspapers and magazines, and I've just recently got very good reviews from two of the big book review companies in the United States. It's Kirkus Reviews and U.S. Review of Books, and both were very well. They thought it was very well done, and it was a good story.
So pick up the book wherever fine books are sold, folks.
There you go. To see a thing.
And it sounds like a great story and a lot of fun. So there
it is. Yeah,
what a wonderful story. We love scoundrels. You know?
Yeah.
The good, bad, the ugly. I think it's because we like survivors. Sometimes you got to get scrappy in this world to stay alive.
There you
Or
go.
a survivor sort of thing there. I don't know. Anyway, thank you very much for coming on the show, Joe. We really appreciate it. What a great story you're sharing here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I mean, some of the greatest stories people have are in their own families. We have lots of authors on the show that, they dug through history and found these untold stories that, got lost in time. And,
Oh, yeah.
And my mom's a big genealogist too. And so, they're always, find stories. She's like, yeah, that Bob Barker in 1671 was the king, Chris. And I'm like, well, if he doesn't have any money to let me inherit, then fuck him. I don't care.
There you go.
Did he have any money? I mean, I last time I checked, I'm not on the king prince list there. So I'm not really concerned about Bob Barker there in 1600s. No relation to the guy I grew up with who did was it The Price is Right? We lived next door to him when I was a kid. So folks, order the book, folks, wherever fine books are sold. Thanks, Joe, for coming to the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Kentucky Barracuda, Parker H. French, out March 1st, 2023 by Joe Goodbody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss1 on the TikTokity and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time. And that should have us out. Great show.